So we are in Daniel. The last time we got together, we looked at chapter 2 and the image that Nebuchadnezzar had in his dream. And we talked about those 4 different parts of the image and how that was revealed. God revealed that to Daniel, and then Daniel revealed that to Nebuchadnezzar. As far as Babylon and Persia and Greece and Rome, and then the feet of iron and clay was the Antichrist, and then the stone came and smashed everything. That was Christ. So today we want to look at chapter 9. And in chapter 9, we find a variety of things here that are very, very exciting. Now, plenty of time has passed between Daniel 2 and Daniel 9. We are now past the reign of Nebuchadnezzar. We are past Babylon. Babylon has been overcome by the Median Persians, and now we are in the reign of Darius III. And so in chapter 9 here, now Daniel is much older than what he was early on. In the first year of Darius, the son of Ahasuerus, by descent a Mede, who was made king over the realm of the Chaldeans, in the first year of his reign, I, Daniel, perceived in the books, which is referred to, what books? The Old Testament, right? I perceived in the books the number of years that according to the word of the Lord to Jeremiah the prophet, so specifically he's reading Jeremiah, must pass before the end of the desolations of Jerusalem, namely 70 years. Then I turned my face to the Lord God, seeking him by prayer, and pleaded for mercy with fasting and sackcloth and ashes. And Daniel goes on, and he prays, and he confesses the sin of his nation, and he prays for the nation. And in verse 20, Daniel writes, "So while I was speaking and praying, confessing my sin and the sin of my people Israel, and presenting my plea before the Lord my God for the holy hill of my God, while I was speaking and praying, the man Gabriel, whom I had seen in the vision at the first, came to me in swift flight at the time of the evening sacrifice. He made me understand, speaking with me, and saying, O Daniel, I have now come out to give you insight and understanding. At the beginning of your pleas for mercy, a word went out, and I have come to tell it to you, for you are greatly loved. Therefore, consider the word and understand the vision. 70 weeks are decreed about your people and your holy thing, to finish the transgression, to put an end to sin, and to atone for iniquity, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal both vision and prophet, and to anoint a most holy place. Know therefore and understand that from the going out of the word to restore and build Jerusalem, to the coming of an anointed one, a prince, there will be 7 weeks. Then for 62 weeks it shall be built again, with squares and moat, but in a troubled time. And after the 62 weeks, an anointed one shall be cut off, shall have nothing. And the people of the prince who is to come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. Its end shall come with a flood, and to the end there shall be war. Desolations are decreed, and he shall make a strong covenant with many for 1 week, and for half of the week he shall put an end to sacrifice and offering, and on the wane of abominations shall come one who makes desolate, until the decreed end is poured out on the desolator. So, time-wise, these 70 weeks are referencing something here. Jeremiah writes about this period of time where there's going to be a period of captivity. And this period of captivity, he says, is going to be 70 weeks. So 70 sevens. And this is talking about, we're not talking about weeks like we think of weeks. The word weeks here is a reference to actual years of time. Why it translates that way, I don't know. But that's the way it translates. So, 70 weeks, 70 years. And we said last time, the reason that 70 was chosen was because 70 years of Sabbath years was neglected by Israel when God allowed them to go into the Promised Land, and He gave Moses the law. He said that there are certain things that happen in the course of time, and once every 7 years, there needs to be a Sabbath rest, or the land will be able to rest. And again, they didn't have all the things that we have today as far as chemicals and all that, and fertilizers and so on. So, if you want your land to be able to survive and replenish itself, you need to give the land a rest. And not only was it to give the land a rest, it was also to honor the Lord and to remind the people of the Sabbath rest of the Lord. And there was also, during that time period, there would be a time in which debts would be forgiven and things of that nature. Now, those were all things that were required of the people. However, they didn't do it. They neglected those things. And so, this is part and parcel of the reason why God said, all right, there are 70 Sabbaths that you owe me. So, you're going to be in captivity for 70 years. 1 year to represent every one of those Sabbath years that you neglected to give back to me. I'm going to claim them now through this captivity that you have earned for yourself. So this is what's happening. And at the end of that time period, Jeremiah says that the Lord promises that He is going to bring the people back into the land. Now, this happened under Cyrus. If you look here in chapter 10, the beginning of chapter 10, now we are in the reign of Cyrus. Okay, Darius has come and gone. Now Cyrus is on the scene. And it is Cyrus who is referenced in Jeremiah and other places as being the one, and he's called by name. The Lord said, my servant Cyrus, just like the Lord had said, my servant Nebuchadnezzar. Not that he was a believer and served the Lord, but God was going to use this unbelieving ruler for his purposes. And in this case, it is my servant Cyrus who is going to give the command to allow the people to leave and to go back into the promised land if they so desire. And this is exactly what happened. 70 years passed, Cyrus came on the scene, and Cyrus wanted to make good with everybody, a good political move, to be in favor with all the different peoples, said, the Jewish people have been here long enough, and if they'd like to go back, we'll open the door and let them go back. Now, he knew full well that not everybody would go back. And just because the Lord opened the door and allowed the Israelites to go back, doesn't mean that everybody went back. The majority of them did not. Because let's face it, over a period of 70 years, you've got probably 2 generations of people that have been born and raised in the land of Babylon, now Persia, Medo-Persia, that have known nothing but that place as home. They didn't want to move. They were perfectly satisfied where they were. But they had the option of moving back if they wanted to. Some of them did. And as we read about that, we read that through Nehemiah and Ezra. They were contemporaries at the same time. They were also here at the same time Daniel was. And they were used by the Lord to rebuild the old city and the temple. Ezra was responsible for building the temple, and Nehemiah was given permission to rebuild the wall of Jerusalem to rebuild the city. And so those things, all of these things are taking place simultaneously. So we have Ezra, Nehemiah, Daniel, all living at the same time. They're all contemporaries. So when you read the Bible and you don't see that all flows together unless you're reading a chronological version, don't think that there's these great gaps and that Daniel was way older and then there was Nehemiah that was way back then. And then there was Ezra and all this back and forth kind of thing. It wasn't that way at all. It's just how our English translation of the Bible is arranged topically as opposed to being arranged chronologically. If you really want to see how things unfolded in real time throughout Old Testament history, then you need to read a chronological translation where everything is done chronologically as it unfolds. Okay? So, that's what you talked about. So here we have it. This takes place, and the 70 years of captivity happens, 606, and Jerusalem is destroyed. They are in captivity for 70 years. And then the decree to rebuild Jerusalem is given. We also read about it in Nehemiah chapter 2. And that is happening in 444 BC. If you're looking on your timeline, I'm looking at this timeline here. This timeline here. Okay. Right there in the middle. Now, notice that what you have here is you have the starting of this 70 weeks. From 444, and then 70 weeks, another 490 years, brings us to 33 AD. This is where we read in Daniel chapter 9, we just read about the prince who is to be cut off all of a sudden. that point, the clock, so to speak, of God's dealing with the Jews comes to a halt. Okay? The clock is paused, if you will. And the reason for that is because God intends to bring about the church age. Something that we want to make sure we keep in mind is the promise that God made in His covenant with Abraham. You remember God said, I will bless those that bless you, I will curse those that curse you, and through you all the nations of the earth will be blessed. So there has to be room in order for that part of the covenant to be fulfilled, if you will. So the Jewish people are the ones who have blessed the rest of the Gentile world in the fact that through the Jewish people came Jesus Christ. Now, the message of the gospel is going to be spread by the apostles, and we read all about it in the book of Acts, and the coming of the church. That blessing of the message of salvation is now going to be shared with all ethnicities, all ethnos, the people groups. And this is what's happening during the church age. It's referenced here as being the great parenthesis. You can see that. It says that Israel is being sidelined. From the death of Jesus, the resurrection of Jesus, beginning of the church, all the way through whenever the rapture happens, we are in the period of the church age. The clock is still stopped. It's still on pause with Israel. When the rapture takes place and the church is removed, the clock will start again. God will pick up where He left off with Israel because He's not finished with Israel yet. And what is going to happen is that there are going to be the last set of sevens, those last 7 years. And that is what is referenced here in verse 26. After the 62 weeks, an anointed one, this is talking about Messiah, will be cut off and shall have nothing, and the people of the prince who is to come, that's referencing who? No, not this one. This one is referencing the Antichrist. Okay? Who is to come is going to destroy the city and the sanctuary. Its end will come with a flood, and to the end there shall be war, desolations. He will make a strong covenant, verse 27, with the men for 1 week, there's that 7-year period, and for half of the week He will put an end to sacrifice and offering. And on the wing of abominations will come one who makes desolate, until the decreed end is poured out on the desolate children. So, it's a reference to the 7-year period of tribulation. Halfway through, the Antichrist is going to break this treaty that He made, this peace treaty that He makes with Israel. He is suddenly going to put a complete halt to the use and the worship of the temple. The temple sacrifices by then will have been reinstituted. Now, I don't know. I don't think scholars know necessarily what those sacrifices are going to look like. I would assume that it's going to be animal sacrifices like it was before. I don't know what other types of sacrifices that it would be, because that's what the Old Testament law was. So it will be those Old Testament type sacrifices that will be reinstituted, because that's what the Jews know, that's what their tradition has been. The temple will have been rebuilt, and again, we've talked fact that this rebuilding of, I'll call it the tribulation temple, could happen at any time. We've already referenced in the last number of weeks the fact that right now, and for the last 20, 30, 40 years anyway, there are people over in Israel that are in preparation, making preparations for the reinstitution of the use of the temple and the building of the temple and the manufacturing temple implements and the garments of the priests and trying to bring about the red heifer so that they can use the ashes of the red heifer as part of that sacrifice and on and on and on and on. We want the whole thing to be there again. So the temple could happen at any time. The temple could be rebuilt. We could turn on the news tomorrow and Netanyahu could say, we have decided that we are going to rebuild the temple. Okay, good. There's nothing that says that that can't be done. The only thing that we know is that when the tribulation begins, the temple will be in existence. It will be operating. And that will be allowed. Antichrist will come on the scene. He will make this wonderful peace treaty with Israel. And everything will be good to go, so to speak, for the first 3.5 years. That's not to say there won't be difficulties, because it's called a tribulation. Okay, so it's going to be bad. There's going to be bad things that will happen. But the worst part of it will be the second part of that tribulation, in the midpoint, first 3.5 years. After that, he's going to break his covenant with Israel. He's going to end the sacrifices. He's going to defile the temple again. And everything is just going to break loose during that last 3.5 years. And this is what Gabriel is telling Daniel is going to happen. And then at the end of that, it's going to be the second coming. Now, another area that we want to look at here, there's another chart that you have here. It says in Daniel chapter 9, timeline. You can take that home and look at it. I won't reiterate it, but just talk about it. But it kind of helps explain it a little bit more with a little bit more detail here. On the side of the first page here, you can see there's Daniel chapter 11. Let's look at that. Okay? Let's see what's going to happen here. In Daniel chapter 11. As for me, in the first year of Darius the Mede, I stood up to confirm and strengthen him. And now I will show you, all right, this is the angel still talking to Daniel. He's been talking to him in chapter 10. He's continuing here. As for me, in the first year of Darius the Mede, I stood up to confirm and strengthen him. And now I will show you the truth. Behold, 3 more kings shall rise in Persia, and the 4th shall be far richer than all of them. And when he has become strong through his riches, he will stir up all against the kingdom of Greece. Then a mighty king shall rise, who shall rule with great dominion and do as he wills. As soon as he has arisen, his kingdom shall be broken and divided toward the 4 winds of heaven, but not to his posterity, nor according to the authority with which he ruled, for his kingdom shall be plucked up and go to others besides these. Then the king of the south shall be strong, but one of his princes shall be stronger than he, and shall rule, and his authority shall be a great authority. And after some years they shall make an alliance, and the daughter of the king of the south shall come to the king of the north to make an agreement. But she shall not retain the strength of her arm, and he and his arm shall not endure, but she shall be given up in her attendance, he who fathered her, and he who supported her in those times. And from a branch from her roots, one shall arise in his place. He shall come against the army and enter the fortress of the king of the north, and he shall deal with them and shall prevail. He shall also carry off to Egypt their gods with their metal images, their precious vessels of silver and gold, and for some years he shall refrain from attacking the king of the north. Then the latter shall come into the realm of the king of the south, but shall return to his own land. His sons shall wage war and assemble a multitude of great forces, which shall keep coming and overflow and pass through, and again shall carry the war as far as his fortress. Then the king of the south, moved with rage, shall come out and fight against the king of the north. And he shall raise a great multitude, but it shall be given into his hand. And when the multitude is taken away, his heart shall be exalted, and he shall cast down tens of thousands, but he shall not prevail. For the king of the north shall again raise a multitude greater than the first, and after some years he shall come on with a great army and abundant supplies. In those times many shall rise against the king of the south, and the valiant among your own people shall lift themselves up in order to fulfill the vision, but they shall fail. Then the king of the north shall come and throw up siege works and take a well-fortified city, and the forces of the south shall not stand, or even his best troops, for there shall be no strength to stand. But he who does come against him shall lose a world, and none shall stand before him. He shall stand in glorious land with destruction in his hand. He shall set his face to come with the strength of his whole kingdom, and he shall bring terms of an agreement and perform them. He will give him the daughter of women to destroy the kingdom, but it shall not stand or be to his advantage. Afterward he shall turn his face to the coastlands and shall capture many of them, but a commander shall put an end to his influence. Indeed, he shall turn his influence back upon him. Then he shall turn his face back toward the fortresses of his own land, but he shall stumble and fall, and shall not be found. And this goes on and continues to talk about the wars that are going to unfold back and forth and back and forth. King of the north, king of the south, and all the stuff that is going on here in chapter 11. What is this reference to? King of the north, king of the south, some guy that's talking to, what are we seeing here unfold? I think what this is talking about here is this is talking about the similar type of things that are going on in Ezekiel's prophecy. And Ezekiel talks about the alliance that is between Gog and Magog, and that northern confederacy of what is going to be Turkey and Russia, and all of that from the north that's going to come down and attack everything that is in the south, which would be Egypt and Sudan and the Congo and some of those areas. And there's going to be this warfare that goes back and forth, playing itself out. And of course, caught in the middle is who? Israel. And so this is all going to play itself out. And as a result, what you find is you find these groups that come, this alliance is ultimately going to also correspond with the world empires that will unfold. He mentions that there's one group that suddenly someone is going to die, and his empire is going to be divided into four parts. Anybody have any idea historically what that might be referencing? That's Alexander the Great. Yes, and his four generals. In world history, if you study world history, you see these things unfolded exactly this way. That there was this battle that was taking place. Alexander suddenly dies. Okay, Alexander dies young. I think he's 37. Wow. Okay. The Greek Empire spread so rapidly that there really wasn't anything in place as far as who would take over or who's being groomed to take over for Alexander. There wasn't necessarily an heir, per se. Part of that is because Alexander was gay and he died of syphilis, so he didn't have an heir. Alright? But what he did have was he had four generals. And those four generals got together and they decided he would divide up the empire. And so Ptolemy was one of those generals. He ended up taking everything to the south. So that's where you have the Ptolemy Empire down south and down Egypt. And then you had the Seleucids. They were the ones up in the north. And then there were a couple of other guys that took east and west. And they just continued to battle. Ultimately, over time, what you had was I don't call it necessarily the destruction of the southern part of Egypt, but let's just say they weren't destroyed, but they were no longer a world-class empire. They were no longer a threat. And that came about through the reign of Cleopatra. And Cleopatra made an alliance with the guys from the north. What's she make an alliance with? Mark Antony, right? They had that whole thing going on. Okay? And then there came that other empire. Cleopatra and Mark Antony made a covenant together, and they decided to gang up against a guy named Octavian. Octavian was what? What nationality? He was a Roman. Okay? So Octavian came and defeated Mark Antony and Cleopatra at the Battle of Actium. And he ended up conquering, and now you have the beginning of the Roman Empire. Of course, Rome was in existence. Julius Caesar, was the dictator. But since Caesar didn't have any sons, Caesar had a nephew. His nephew was Octavian. And he gave him the title Augustus, which means the Great One. And so by the time we get to the period of Jesus, we read in Luke, the days of Caesar Augustus, of the decree was sent out that all the world should be taxed. And all this kind of thing. So you can kind of see historically how a lot of these things end up unfolding that Daniel writes here prophetically. Now, of course, there's, since Daniel writing this, there is still time that is going to pass, Daniel's lifetime and others, and then there's going to be a period of 400 years where the Bible is silent between the time of the Old Testament and the New Testament, where there is no word from God, and then we pick it up again in Christ. And in all of this, these things are unfolding, and when you see this stuff begin to come about. There are other things that Daniel Daniel references in the book of Daniel. He has some visions about a goat and a ram, and they beat up on each other too. And this is the difference of the conquering of the Persian Empire by the Greek Empire. It's interesting to see all these things prophetically, how they play out and are fulfilled historically in the historical record of world history. That these are things that did indeed come to pass and did come true. What we still have to find that is going to happen is what we've looked at here in chapter 9. Chapter 2 of Daniel is kind of like an overview of everything that is going to unfold. Ahead of all, okay, we're going to have a Babylonian king. The chest of silver, that's going to be the Persians. Then the midsection of bronze, they're the Greeks. Okay, the legs of iron, that's Rome. And then, ultimately, the feet of iron and clay, that's going to be the Antichrist. And so there is, from this vision, there is kind of like an overview of how all of this stuff is going to unfold. These other chapters that we have looked at kind of give the details as some of those things unfold. Chapter 9, chapter 10, chapter 11, and so on. Seeing those things unfold. Now, next time, we are going to look specifically at the tribulation itself. What is the tribulation? What's going to happen during that tribulation period? We have touched on that a little bit with respect to flyby overview that we have in Revelation. But we want to be able to see how these things tie in during that 7-year period of time and how that correlates on earth with what we have seen that's going to be happening in heaven at the same time. We've already looked at that. The judgment, the Bema judgment, the judgment seat of Christ, and the wedding and marriage supper on the land. At the end of those things, that is going to be when Christ returns, and we will be with him. So we will look at that in particular. Have any of you ever watched, I'm not a real sci-fi type person, I'm not a warpy, wizardy type of a thing, but have any of you ever watched any of the Lord of the Rings movies? Okay. Yes, I see them now. What's that? You had Lord of the Rings watch parties here before? And you didn't invite me? Oh, before I was here. Okay. Many moons ago. Okay. Well, on one of those movies toward the end, I don't remember which one it was, 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 6, or however many it was. But you remember that scene where everybody is gathered at Helm's Deep, like a big fortress there at Helm's Deep, and the bad guys, those other scary, icky orcs, is that what they were called? Orcs. The orcs are all surrounding it, and they're going to, take over Helm's Deep and eradicate everybody. And then all of a sudden, the clouds break open, and there's the sunrise, and from a cliff on high, there comes Gandalf the White, okay? And Gandalf the White with his armies, and they're all on white horses, and they all have gleaming swords, and they have this power, and they come down, and they just beat the snot out of all the orcs and Isaiah today, what is he picturing? It's picturing the last battle. It's picturing the coming of Christ in the clouds when things are desperate and dark and the skies will open and every eye will behold him, we are told. Now, make sure we're on the next one. Maybe not. You get that new little guy in the middle. Is that good? Like that? Oh, my goodness. Hannah could do that really good when she was a kid. She was good. She was called. She never fell around and said that out loud. But anyway. Father, we are grateful and thankful to you for the word as we see it revealed, the excitement of being able to realize that the prophecy of the Bible is not just something old and ancient, but it is living and alive, unfolding right before our very eyes in so many ways. We live in exciting days, and we thank you for the privilege of being able to see how you have plans for the way in which you are going to bring about the redemption of this world and people. And thank you for the part that you allow us to play